Welcome back, everyone, to the Train Well podcast, inspiring you to move more, get stronger, and have fun. Today's episode, part 2 of our Perimenopause series, and we have Kris back with us again.
Kris talks about why this matters in changing our whole entire shift on what's going on hormone-wise, how our training needs to shift. We talk about common struggles and what to do instead. And the best thing I got out of this is she gives us a sample weekly fitness blueprint of what we need to be doing, strength training, power training, etc., week to week, day in, day out, to not work against our physiology, but work with it. Stay tuned. Kris, thank you so much for coming back on. We're super excited to unpack. Last episode, I remember I was foaming out the mouth because I wanted to get into the details and unpack the specifics to how we change the mindset shift for these perimenopausal women, right? So thank you so much for jumping in.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, that was disgusting, Joey. You were drooling everywhere.
All right. Well, Kris, let's start by telling people why this matters, right? Why is it important right now to start thinking ahead? Just set the stage for us. So what our listeners need to know about why strength training is important and why they need to know about hormones, etc.
Sure. So as we enter into different phase of life, things start to change. The hormones start to kind of imbalance. And we have to find a way to make sure that things kind of rebalance themselves, or that we are taking the time to really put something in to our regular daily, weekly routine to combat what we're going to be seeing. So we can't deny that this is going to, as women, we're going to shift into this. We're going to be going into this perimenopause phase, menopause phase. There's no doubt about it. Just like saying, you're going to get older, but what can you do about it? What can you do about that right now? So I think just understanding what's happening in the body, estrogen, which helps build muscle, when it starts to decline, that muscle we start to have muscle loss. This can begin even if your activities are the same. So we start to see this shift with the hormones. So you could say, I've been doing the same thing. I've been working out on the treadmill, but my body's still changing. There's still something else going on. And this is where resistance training comes in, which I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit more about it. And then cortisol levels change as well. And this, again, is all through perimenopause. Women are more sensitive to stress. The cortisol stays elevated for a longer period of time. And high cortisol can break down muscle. It promotes abdominal fat storage. So we talk about the visceral fat. A lot of times we'll start to see that, the changes in the belly area. It affects sleep. It affects your recovery. So there's all types of things that are going on in your body. And this is really happening for a long time. I mean, this could be a decade worth of all these changes that are happening, and kind of slowly realizing this over time. A lot of women aren't aware of it right away because, you're so used to being fatigued. You're so used to having, brain fog because you have so much going on. So a lot of times you may be in the middle of it before you realize, hey, I think I'm going through these symptom changes.
Yeah, that's a great breakdown. Like this connection. And I think this is helpful for people to hear. It's like, this is not your fault. You're not doing anything wrong. This is naturally occurring in the body, and it happens to all women when the estrogen, the testosterone start to decline and the cortisol starts to rise. And then on top of that, you're getting the decrease in muscle as you're aging, and you're prime to have these issues where you're noticing that unexplained weight gain. Like you said, Kris, people are going, I'm doing all the right things. I'm doing everything I've always done. And all of a sudden it's not working. That we hear women in perimenopause saying that all the time. And I just want to reach out to people and say, you're doing great. You're doing great. this is naturally happening in your body, and we can just tweak some things to make this so much more effective for you. But it starts with, I think, and you can tell me if you agree, a mindset shift. Because, you know, what you were doing before, yeah, maybe that was working for that time of your life when you were younger, and that your body's a little bit more resilient, recovers a little faster. But now we need to shift the mindset towards something else. Can you talk about what does that mindset shift look like? And then we'll get into how do we act on it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with that. It's definitely starts with the mind shift. It starts with realizing you might need to do something a little bit different. And I'm sure, most of our listeners have heard before that, muscle is the powerhouse to the body. It's what keeps you living longer. And really, this is what we need to look at. Are we looking at longevity? Are we looking at, what we look like? This is where we have to say, okay, what's more important for me right now in this stage of life? Am I looking at the long-term effects? Am I going to be able to keep myself out of the, out of a home earlier? Am I going to be able to play with my grandkids? What is it that's most important for me now? And I think it should be more of that shift of, I need to keep myself strong. That's going to be the most important thing. So I think accepting that, we are aging, and accepting that there are changes going on in our body, and knowing that we might need to change what we've been doing before.
Yeah. And sorry, Joey, I'm going to let you jump in here, but I'm now the one like foaming at the mouth. So excited to talk about this. But I think also this mindset shift, and you kind of alluded to it, Kris, from like that wanting to be thin and skinny, and it's just not serving us anymore. We need that muscle mass. We need to be strong over being skinny. And what you said about like looking long term, where do you want to be long term? And it's like, yes, playing with the grandkids, yes, staying independent, but also like women in perimenopause, we're coming up to an age where we've like built careers, we've raised our children, if we have children, we've done a lot, and we're maybe looking at retirement in the next 15ish years. And hello, that's our time. What do we really want to do? Like, do we want to go on some amazing hike? Do we want to travel the world? What new hobby do we want to get into? Do we want to start cycling or whatever it may be? And we have to be strong to be able to do all this stuff we want to do and put back into ourselves after spending years of raising our kids or building our career and focusing on something that wasn't just us.
That is totally right. And I think we all start to visualize that when we get closer. This is my time. This is time for me. What can I do to make sure that I am going to take the most advantage of this time? Am I going to be able to do all these things that I have been looking forward to doing? Can I do it well? Is my body going to be capable of getting me to that point that I can take a hike, that I can ride my bike? Those are the things that we should start to look at now.
But we're going to talk later. Riding that long bike ride may not be the correct physiological thing for women, right? But I think so. Let me get this straight from both of you, because both of you guys are the women. You are the experts. I am the man. Men can be dumb, mostly, right? But I'm understanding that strong, not small, is this new standard, right? Like this shift from chasing thinner, chasing skinny needs to change, and that the lifting weights, right? It's not about aesthetics anymore. Exactly. It's about more energy, more resiliency. Correct? Is that what the frame set there, Kris?
Yes, and I'm actually glad you mentioned the word small. I kind of keyed in on that. I don't want women to feel, if I go into strength training and I start lifting heavy, I'm going to bulk up. I don't want to look, bulky. I don't want to look like a man. And again, this is part of that mind shift is you won't. We aren't looking at, we're going to bulk up. We are going to get stronger. And that means being more capable. That means being more functional in the things that we do every day. And you aren't going to necessarily change the outlook of getting bulky, getting bigger, but you're feeling better, you're feeling more capable.
I think that's huge. So, okay, so once women make this mindset shift, okay, so now I'm not thinking small, I'm thinking strong. I'm thinking, I'm not done yet. What's left for me? And I want to be able to do all that stuff. So, but then there's part of their brain going, but like, I'm so tired, right? Because they're in perimenopause. I'm so tired. I don't feel like myself because I have this weight gain that's making me feel a little uncomfortable in my body. I haven't been sleeping at night. All my joints are hurting. And I just don't know if I have the energy to get started. So, can you run through like why is strength training going to actually combat some of those struggles that so many women are having?
Well, it's certainly hard to imagine when you are in that stage of fatigue. You can't imagine doing more. Well, how can I go and start lifting weights if I'm so exhausted? But the opposite of is true. You will actually get more energy. You're going to find that, you have, you just have more gumption to do things. But and you can start with a shorter routine. It doesn't have to be long. You don't have to say, well, I have to dedicate an hour, 2 hours into the gym. And I think that's another thing that a lot of women are thinking is, well, time is such an essence for most people. It's the one thing we don't have enough of yet. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about time. What is your time frame? And if you don't do something now, it doesn't matter how old you are, then you're always going to look back and go, well, I wish I had set aside some time for that. I wish I had put some time to myself to get started. And that's all we're talking about right now. You can get started, and you can get started 15 to 20 minutes. And it's getting into that habit and making it just a part of your regular routine. You're going to show up for yourself every week, and that's going to make the difference.
Isn't
Yeah.
that the beauty of strength training too? You can make it so efficient too. Like you can do, I know we'll get to this later, but Darian and I have talked before, like you can make a 30-minute session or even a 20-minute session robust without beating up your body. That is the amazing thing. So the women going through fatigue and going through these hormone changes, right? You can't out hustle hormones and fatigue with more hit, right? The wrong hit and fewer calories. Would you guys both agree?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I want to say, like, to speak to like the fat gain issue during perimenopause, because it's real. We start to see that as the muscle decreases, because muscle is what improves metabolism. The more muscle you have, the faster your metabolism is. So if you're losing muscle and then you're gaining the visceral fat, that's the fat around the organs, you're starting to see this body composition. The more muscle you build, the faster the metabolism is. So people, if you're thinking that you're still going to be doing cardio and getting those same results, you're not building muscle when you're doing cardio. So if you're thinking like that zone 2 training is going to be your thing for fat loss, I would encourage you to spend a little less of the time doing zone 2, take some of that time you're spending doing cardio right now and put that towards a really solid strength training routine. And you will start to see huge improvements. And like Joey was saying, like these routines can be so robust and knock out so many of these symptoms you're having. Like a good routine is going to incorporate mobility as well, which is so good for the joints. And like Joey and I've talked about so many times, recovery is part of the program. Making sure you're having your rest days and you're getting enough sleep, that's all part of the program too. So this is why doing a really solid strength training program is going to be so beneficial for your perimenopause symptoms.
And I think another thing to point out is, your muscles are working for you at rest. So when you're taking that recovery day, your muscles are actually working for you. They're doing something. So you having that rest day isn't like, oh, I'm not doing anything. Your muscles are still working for you. So again, something that I think we need to make sure that women are educated about. I really wish we could get away from, staring at the number on the scale and BMI and all those things, don't really tell you the full story. And then, again, we're talking about putting on muscle mass, that is key. And I really wish that would be more of the focus that we're hearing from, doctors and, other medical providers.
Put your scale in a dumpster fire. No one needs it.
Kris, you talked about what your muscles do for you like at rest. I love how you said that, because our investor guy, he says it's like the same thing as investing, right? Like if I go and invest in a 401k or a CD or some mutual funds, like that money is making me money when I'm just sitting on my can. And when you strength train, I don't think any other modality does this. When you strength train and you stack that muscle, it's paying for you dividends. You're burning calories at rest. So that's huge. But anyways, talk to us now about, okay, how do our fitness needs shift? So what needs to change from this endurance cardio mindset to now strength and metabolism focus?
So first, I want to say I love that analogy. That's perfect. I love the analogy with your 401k. So I want to dive a little bit into recovery. So recovery could mean, you're taking that day off. Recovery could also mean taking a 30-minute walk. It could be some stretching, some yoga, some mobility work. So our joints are also affected by the change in the hormones. So your recovery day, again, could be something where you're just adding mobility into it, flexibility as much as you can. And then when we're talking about a higher intensity, we really want to kind of get away from that, jumping on the treadmill and, just aimlessly running for, a whole hour. Now, I'm not saying if you are a runner, if you enjoy running, if that, getting outdoors and getting that mental clarity, absolutely. But I think, we're coming from an era where women, or if you want to call them, cardio queens, that we thought that was the end all be all. And that's where we want to kind of take a step back and look at what is most important. So I do believe that Mary Claire Haver talked about having short sprints. And I know Darian can talk a little bit more about this. Adding shorter but full on, all out, intense sprints where you're resting a little bit longer time, but you're doing full effort.
I think that I think Stacy Sims is a great resource for people. If you want to know about training at, age 40 plus, Stacy Sims has done so much research for this age group. I really can't listen to her enough. I listen to like every podcast she does, but she has a great way of like breaking down at this age what's working best for you. And like Kris said, it's not doing the like steady state endurance cardio. If it is like for your soul, do it for your soul. That's great. Everyone needs that kind of stuff. But if you're really thinking about body composition and what's most effective for you, what it's going to look like is like 3-4 days of strength training. And that's heavy strength training. We're going to get into what that means, heavy strength training. And then it's for cardio, it's not doing like the HIIT sessions like Joey and I have talked about so many times, like we're talking Orange Theory, like F45, those type of HIIT sessions, because that's really moderate intensity. That's not high intensity, because you're going for like that whole 45-minute to an hour session. Nobody can go all out max effort if you have a class that is that long. So we're looking at some like true HIIT sessions, and we'll talk about what those are. And then we're looking at the sprint sessions, like Kris said, where we're doing like all out, leave it all on the table, nothing in the tank, 30 seconds. And we're taking these long rests. Or maybe it's one as fast as you can lap around the track, walk around the track, fast as you can around the track, walk around the track. So true, like high intensity sprint work. But then of course we need to add in our balance work, stability work, mobility work to keep the joints healthy, and to, fend against what unfortunately leads to mortality for so many women as they age, is falling, which is like mind blowing, but that is something we have to be really careful about. And you can build that into your training programs.
Can I say something, D, real quick, D?
Yes, Joe, you can just go. Just talk.
Folks,
Talk away.
folks out there, don't go, if you haven't ran a sprint in the few years, maybe a couple decades, don't go to the track and do an 800 or 400 or 200 or 100. I have three things I want you to do first. Okay. It's called an assault bike or a airdyne bike. Those are amazing. Low impact. Get on the rower, do a
Mm-hmm.
med ball slam, or even my favorite is a heavy sled. Because if you try to push a heavy sled, like you're not going to go that fast. You're not going to create a ton of velocity, and it's going to calm down the impact. So just be careful. Don't jump in to a fast sprint routine right out of the get go, because you'll get excited, and I've been there and hurt myself. So don't do that.
I've been there and hurt myself as well. As you all might remember, I did some random hill sprints and immediately like pulled my calf, strained my calf. I didn't even warm up. So yes, that's a great point, Joey. These do not have to, you do not have to run to be able to do this cardio. You can absolutely get on a row machine or do some kettlebell swings or something like that. Like this does not have to be running, which for me, I'm like, yes, because I would rather not, if I'm being honest, which you all know. So we don't have to get into that. But I'd love to break down, like, let's get into the nitty gritty a little bit. What does a week of training actually look like? Like, how might we structure these weeks of training, and what moves are we looking to incorporate in our strength training workouts? And then I'd love to even get into, like, let's give people specifics. How do they know how much to lift? Where to start with choosing weights, and like how many reps and sets are people doing? So Kris, could you lay out like what would like a solid week look like of strength training? Like, are people doing splits? Are they doing full body? What might that look like?
So I would definitely recommend, especially if you're, more beginner to this, that we want to do full body focus, compound movements. So compound lifts, which is basically giving you the best bang for your buck. So using as many muscle groups in one movement as you can. We're also looking at just, I talked a little bit about functional movements. Functional movements you're doing all the time. You're always squatting, you're sitting down in a chair, you're getting back up, you're always hinging. So these are really basic functional movement that we are doing. We're adding weight to it. So we're looking at these compound lifts. We also want to make sure, so let's say we have the full body focus 3 days a week. You might have 2 days in between for recovery days. And again, this could be more mobility work. It could be some stretching, working on flexibility, getting some walking in. You can add in your, higher intensity to this. And again, it doesn't have to be long. It could be shorter. And then you're going to have at least a full day of rest. So that might just be kind of a general look of what that would look like for a week.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna hang on,
Yeah.
Dee. I gotta come at you, Kris, because people don't know where to start. Right? The first question we always get as trainers is like, wait, how do I know how much to lift? Like, where do I start if I am doing deadlifts or if I'm doing overhead press? Dee, there you go, barbell overhead press. Like,
And should people even start with those lifts if they're true beginners? So,
correct.
okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we do a few different clients? We have our true beginner. So let's say true beginner, they've come off the treadmill, they've made their mindset shift, they're ready. They step foot into the weight area, and what do?
Panic.
Hey, run out the door, quick.
So let's say they're in the gym setting. I mean, again, we're going back to these functional movements. You can do an air squat. You can use body weight. You can do machine work. All the machines that are in a gym are set up to allow you to pick a weight. Gives you a little, information on how to do it. So if you're a true beginner, if you're in the gym by yourself, again, we can look at these functional movements, body weight. We can start with machines. And then let's say if you have somebody helping you out, you have a trainer, you can start to dive into just regular dumbbells. I don't want women to feel afraid to pick up a weight. I've talked to many women before, clients that I said, okay, you could do 20 pounds, and they panic. 20 pounds. Oh my gosh, I can't lift 20. They're looking at that weight. They're seeing the number on there. And I say, you have kids. How much do you think your kids weigh? oh yeah, well, my kids weigh 30, 40 pounds. You're picking them up all the time. So sometimes it's just reminding them you are much stronger than what you're giving yourself credit for. So I want women to come into this with an open mind and also realizing that they can do anything. They really can. And you can progressively overload where you're comfortable at that starting point. But I don't want anyone to come in and thinking they can't do this.
Amen, Kris. Just because you're in perimenopause doesn't mean you're fragile. It probably means you're stronger than most everyone else, because now you're having to live your life and also suffer through all these symptoms and like stay awake during the day. And then, like, high five to you. You're also saying, like, I know I need to strength train. And I agree. Like, yeah, like these women are stronger than they think they are. So just so I can like clarify. So you're saying, if you're a true beginner, like start with the machines because it's pretty simple. They're going to tell you the instructions. All you got to do is set it up. How do they pick the weight on the machine even?
So generally, we'd say start off with, pick something that you think would be comfortable. You put the pin in. If you're able to get through, we look to aim between technically 8 to 12 reps. If you're getting to 10 reps and this weight is fairly easy for you, put the pin in the next one. See how heavy you can lift. So what we're trying to do is we want to get you to where you're lifting where you feel like maybe you can't lift anymore. Let's just say on average, we're doing maybe about 10 reps. And again, you're going to, in being a beginner, you want to make sure that you're not overdoing it. So we're not going too heavy. It should be comfortable for you. And I don't want anybody to be afraid that you might have some soreness the next day. That's okay. That means you worked and you worked hard. So again, it's going to be individualized. There's not one size fits all, but you should be comfortable when you're there. Again, lifting between 8 and 10 reps at what is comfortable for you. And if you feel you could do a little bit more, then you can go ahead and select a heavier weight.
And try not to be a technique Timmy too much, right? There is room that you can have mastery for your exercises, but don't be technique Timmy with every little inch, because then you won't ever get uncomfortable and you won't ever change your body, right? But great points, Kris. Okay, now I'm going to throw you an advanced person who's been maybe a collegiate athlete training for however long, right? What moves, and this can go to beginner too, but you mentioned compound movements. We got that check. But tell us, what moves should we hit in a given strength session?
So some of our favorites, of course, are your squats. So we're going into the, squat movement we were talking about. Deadlifts. I love deadlifts. They are probably one of the best exercises for you. If you know what you're doing, if you've done them before, deadlifts are great. We're getting into the, other push movements. So we want to do shoulder work overhead, chest press, rows, anything where we're working on the back. That's the other thing I would like to talk about is as we age, our posture changes. And so I think for a lot of women, a lot of our focus should be on back strengthening. It should be on core work. It should be on glutes. And I'm not talking glutes like we need to have a Kim Kardashian, but I'm talking about using your glutes so that they are activated and you're using them for other things like hiking. And so there's going to be a mind-body connection that you at least for a beginner, that you kind of have to work through to really feel the movements. But you're talking about an athlete. I'm sure they've been through that. So just going through those basic compound movements, like I said, the squat, the chest press, the overhead press, bent over rows, and deadlifts.
I did want to also kind of like backtrack just a touch, because we kind of jumped from like beginner to like advanced. They were a collegiate athlete. They're doing all their main compound lifts with barbells. But what about that person who's like, okay, I've built my foundation on the machines. I'm feeling good about that. I've been doing some of my body weight moves, so I'm getting those movement patterns down. Like I've been doing my squats. I've been doing some knee push-ups, and like maybe they're doing like hip thrusts on the bench. So they're working their hinges, but they want to take it up a level. and really start using the dumbbells more, the kettlebells more. Maybe they're starting to venture into barbells. Where do you recommend that intermediate person go to? And again, and talk about rep ranges, because in the younger years, you could really go for max reps and you're going to like do great. But then as we get older, we're seeing it's not about the number of reps. We want to keep the reps on the lower side, right? It's about driving up the weight. So how do people make that determination like as they're beginning to get stronger?
I still like the combination of using free weights and some of the machines. I think they're just very complementary. So I wouldn't like necessarily, it's not like machines are just for the beginners. I would have both in your routine. So, so once you get down the body movements, you're going to start to add weight to it. And here we're going to look at, again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're not looking for perfection. You don't have to hit 6 to 8 reps exactly, but we are looking at how heavy can we lift that's comfortable, that you're keeping your form. And again, you being a beginner, you may be looking at that stack of weights and you're going to try out the 10s. Are the 10s comfortable for you? If they are, then you can move up to the 12s. Are the 12s comfortable for you? Yes, I was starting to feel that. Try the 15s for the last, and maybe you get 4 in there. That's how you're going to start to progress, and that's how you're going to get stronger.
That's great. And like, I think the key two things I'm pulling out is like, one, experiment. Just keep trying things till you find the right weights, and then continuing. Once you're comfortable, it's time to go up. Once you're comfortable again, it's time to go up. You have to be progressively overloading to really get the max benefit. And if you have your form down and you've been, patient and dialed that in, and you've been slowly working up, you don't have to worry as much about injury because you're doing it right and you're doing it smart.
Yeah,
And
don't be worried about failure, right? Like I think reps in reserve we can talk about, right? Where you're working up to, let's say you're aiming for a set of 10, let's say. And let's see if you girls agree with me, like for clients,
Girls, these are
gal,
grown ass women, Joey.
okay, forgive me. So we can tell with the attitude, right? So as the client gets to that 10th rep, like they shouldn't put the weights down. Like let's say they're on their third set, fourth set, whatever. They shouldn't put that weight down and be like, I could have done like 10 more, right? I think that's a very common mistake. And a lot of people waste their time in the gym because reps in reserve, they want to keep like 1, 2, 3 maybe in the tank. If they fail, that's okay, right, Kris?
yes, and in fact, that's what I wanted to bring up. Failing when it comes to weight training is a good thing. I want women to understand, if you decided to pick up a heavier weight and try it out and you were able to get to 5 or you're able to get to 4, to me, that's a win. That's a huge win, because then we're going to keep going back to it and we're going to see what we can do with it next time. So when we talk about failing, it isn't a negative term. It means you put your effort forward and you did something about it. So that's what I want women to understand, that failing is pushing yourself to your own limit.
Yeah. And then the other piece of this would be the high intensity or sprint training, which we kind of already broke down some different formats for that. But you were also saying, Kris, like these don't have to be long workouts, and they shouldn't be. If you're really giving it your full out effort, you're not going to be able to do a long session. You probably won't even be able to do 30 minutes if you're really going. I mean, you might do like 4 rounds of 30 on, 2 minutes off if you're going all out. And that's that. And that's a pretty short workout. So you could do those separate days. You could also tack them on the end of your workouts. Is there anything people should know when they're going into these higher intensity sessions? Like how should they be building up, or what kind of warm-ups should they be doing? I guess if it's on the end of a session, you really don't need to warm up, but let's say they're doing it on a separate day. Like what are people doing to make sure they're not getting injured?
Definitely want to work on mobility, getting those stretches in. I know you mentioned, filling it in your calf. So you want to make sure that, think of all the joints that are mobile. You want to, do ankle mobility work. You want to do big arm circles. Just kind of work that in before you're planning on sprinting off. You could even do a quick jogging place. So kind of just warming up the body if you haven't already. And again, we're looking at this. You could just, if you wanted to start this off, okay, and you're working in your mobility, you're getting in the dynamic stretches, which means not static stretching. You're not holding a stretch, but you're moving through it. Just tell yourself, I'm going to try it for 10 minutes, see what you can do. You want to build upon where your starting point is. So tell yourself 10 minutes, and then maybe the next week, see if you can go for 15, then maybe the next week, 20. So you can always start at a shorter cadence and build up from there.
And that's for the sprint work, or that's for like the mobility sessions?
That's for the sprint work. Yeah.
Okay, ladies, I want to go back to the pelvic floor, because Darian, that was something huge, right? A lot of people don't even like understand how to even train the pelvic floor. And sometimes, like, if you do jump rope, right, you can leak a little bit as you jump, right? How do we know? You both can answer this. How do we know if the pelvic floor is weak? What's a test for us? And then what are specific exercises we can do rather than a cue that we always use, right? Like squeeze the tampon, right? What are cues, or how can we train that and feel it?
I always have my clients start out on the floor with their back flat. We talk about pushing the belly button towards the floor and really just taking your time to focus on engaging those abs, on squeezing. So if you're not really feeling it, we had talked about, the bands. If you have those glute bands, if you have a small pliable ball, a ball that has a little bit of some cushion in there, put those between the knees while you're on the floor and just gently squeeze. You will start to activate the muscles, and you should start to feel it. So there's definitely ways that we can use certain tools, but sometimes it's just slowing things down and really paying attention, really focusing on what are the muscles I'm using? Can I feel it here? And different phrases work for some people, oh, you're blowing out a candle, or like you said, squeezing the tampon in. So you kind of have to work with what kind of sparks you that, I get it now. And it takes time too. There are sometimes it takes a little bit of time, and don't be frustrated if you're not feeling that right away.
Yeah. And I'll just add to that too. I think one of the most important things, if you're not, there's so much specific like core pelvic floor work you can do. Palloff presses are really good. That's kind of where you're taking like a band or a cable. You're stepping away from whatever the anchor point is, and you're trying to hold that band, press it out front, or that cable out front of you without allowing for rotation. So it really activates the whole core. Pelvic floor is part of your core, and it connects, like actually physiologically connects with your breath, because as you inhale, the diaphragm lowers, the pelvic floor lowers. As you exhale, they both lift and engage. So on an exhale, you're getting that natural contraction of the pelvic floor. So we can use that exhale to our advantage. So when you're lifting, ladies, do not hold your breath. You should be breathing through every single movement. And this is like a really simple way to make sure your pelvic floor is like strong and safe throughout all movements. Is, for example, if you're doing a squat, you're inhaling on the way down, you're exhaling on the way up. That's the hardest part of the movement. We're using that natural contraction of the pelvic floor to our advantage, and exhaling on the way up. And that helps control our intra-abdominal pressure as well, so that we're not damaging the pelvic floor. But the flip side of strengthening the pelvic floor, because this can be equally as problematic, is people who have a super tight pelvic floor that never releases. So as much as we've been trained to suck in our bellies all the time, don't suck in your belly all the time. Relax, release, breathe. You should be having big inhales that expand the ribs and the belly, and exhales that have a gentle brace when you need that. You should always be matching the amount of brace you're using to the work that you're doing. It's like you wouldn't go all out for a deadlift that feels like light for you. That's like when you grab the jug of water and you know it's not full, but you think it is, and you like fling it off the table because you're using too much force for what's needed. So you want to use just the right amount of force. Of course, obviously, I could talk about pelvic floor all day, but I digress. I think we should get to some listener questions. These are common questions that we hear all the time when people are getting started into strength training, people in perimenopause. So I'll just read some off to you, Kris. Joey and I can take turns, and then maybe you could answer this for us. So, and we've touched on a lot of these, but I think it's nice to just kind of drive the point home. Women are asking, why am I gaining weight even though I'm eating the same and working out the same?
So this is where it comes to those imbalance of the hormones. They start to shift. We talked about estrogen. When it drops, the body becomes more sensitive to the stress. This is where the cortisol levels start to rise. And this is where we start to see the weight gain. We start to see it in the belly area, even if you're doing the same thing. And then progesterone drops. And progesterone is actually kind of like a calming agent. So when that drops, it also helps counterbalance cortisol. So when it declines, that's when we start to feel the increase in anxiety and our sleep. So when we don't have that sleep, when we're feeling, brain fog, all those things come into play with how you're feeling for the day and how you can give your most when it comes to working out. So again, there are changes in the hormones. There's this shift where what you've been doing may not be working anymore.
Yeah, your hormones aren't sabotaging you, right? They're
Yeah.
asking for a new strategy. That's what they need, baby. Lift in. Okay, Kris, another common question, even that I get is, can I still build muscle even in a later age? Let's say 40s, 50s, and beyond.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have my own personal hero, Ernestine Shepherd. If you don't know who she is, look her up. She is an 80-plus-year-old weightlifter who started in her either late 60s, maybe even early 70s, and absolutely amazing. So she is, to me, the ideal woman that is telling you can start at any age at all.
Okay, so here's another question. And we did touch on this a little. When you're struggling with all these symptoms, fatigue, brain fog, lack of sleep, how can you stay consistent when you're just feeling really down and unmotivated?
Just keep it simple. If you can carve out time, this is what I like to tell my clients. I say, look, go into your phone, put in that you have a meeting. If you had an actual meeting for work, you wouldn't miss it. You would show up for it. If your kids have an appointment, you wouldn't miss it. You would show up for it. Yet we don't show up for ourselves. So I want you to take the time, put a meeting in. It could be a daily meeting, 3 times a week, whatever. Put it in your phone. And I want you to show up. It is a meeting that you're not going to miss. And you can make it 15 minutes. You can make it 20 minutes to start. And you're going to show up for that meeting 3 times a week, 5 times a week. And then we're going to build upon it. But you have to show up for yourself.
Love it, Kris. This will be, I guess, my last question, because I think I want to hammer the point home here. But the question we get is, okay, do I really need to lift heavy, or can I just stick to my yoga classes? Can I just stick to my walking?
You do have to lift heavy. And heavy is relative term, meaning we will progress for what is right for you. But one quote that I love is, get rid of the mamby-pamby weights. Get rid of the little pink weights. That's not what we're trying to do. We are trying to lift heavy. We're looking at this as longevity. And again, don't be afraid of what that number on that weight says. You can do it. You're a lot stronger than you give yourself credit for. And what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? Getting yourself out there, being uncomfortable in a new setting. But you know what? You're talking about your life, your longevity, and you're the one that needs to make it happen.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Kris, thank you so much. That was so helpful and so inspiring at the end. I love what you said about, like, what do you have to lose? And just get out there and try it. I think that's awesome. All right. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gents, you heard it from the pro, Kris Sullivan, and Darian, D Legendarian. You heard it from her too. Great tips on how to start working with your body, perimenopause. Big call to action real quick before we conclude is, listeners, we want to hear from you. So please reach out to us. You can text us, you can email us with topics you want to hear.
And make sure you're checking our show notes for that link to try Train Well for free for 14 days. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.